is the scene where he's sat at the fire.
Yes. Yep.
And he's just
It's the
watching
best
him like,
scene in the movie.
what about? And then all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, anyway, Bill, what you doing at the public?
So- Welcome back to Foreplay. We're on our new arc now, which we are very tastefully calling Spit Roast. And what this means is that each of us has selected a film that the other ones are definitely going to dislike. And I think I've already been successful. We're doing my film first. And the first film will be The 13th Warrior.
Here's the thing, Monty. The reason the title is actually not just an edgy title, but it's also appropriate in the same way as Foreplay obviously actually has the number 4 and it references the fact we're doing 4 movies, is because like a good spit roast, Monty, we actually, essentially you, the one getting fucked, enjoy it on some level, and we don't necessarily enjoy it because we're not doing that, but we're enjoying fucking you. So if you understand that premise, this series will work. Because I have to say, I actually did think going in, what if these movies are like really bad? But I realized that actually makes the episode better. So the shitter it got, more I sort of like knew inversely that I would be able to just ask basically Monty, like, why the fuck do you like this then, you idiot? On some level, you know.
So the first one we're doing is The 13th Warrior. That's my movie. The second one we're doing is Thorin's movie, which is Guy Ritchie's Revolver. The third one we're doing is Richard's movie, The Beast Must Die, from 1974. It's a 1970s horror movie. And the final movie, we have chosen our arch nemesis, the deceased Roger Ebert, who we went through a list of his 4-star films and selected one we knew we all hate, which is 500 Days of Summer, which I can't believe I have to watch again. Never did I think in my life that I would be watching that movie one more time, but here we are.
No, Christ. I almost regret picking it out, but what can we do? Ebert Must Die. That's the real title of the film. Roger Ebert Must Die. In a video game in Minecraft. You've also left out the fact that I have picked a blaxploitation werewolf murder mystery movie. So 500 Days of Summer might not go over the worst. So we'll see.
We'll see. And we all did rewatch The 13th Warrior. I've seen this movie way too many times, and I watched it again, guys, and I thought to myself, I still like this movie.
Here's what you need to do. You need to do this.
movie.
I think we both need to do this. At the beginning of every episode, whoever picked the movie has to do the following 2 things. You have to explain one, like what circumstances did you actually see this first? Because, for example, like on this movie, you have to immediately tell us where you're like 11 and just saw it on like cable TV or something, right?
I'm sure.
Then there's also the other angle of why pick this movie? Like why pick it even if you know people rush? So give us those 2 angles. Why this movie?
So I do actually like this movie, but the reason why I first probably saw this movie was because I was almost certainly a teenager. I don't think I saw this in 99, even though I was a teenager. I think I probably saw it sometime after it was, on DVD or whatever in the early 2000s. But first off, I really like Vikings and Viking mythology. I also really like this time period, well, actually technically a later time period within Arabic culture, like the Arabian Nights era. I've always found to be very interesting. And it is a crossover between those 2 things. It has a basis in history. So Ibn Fadlan was an actual guy who existed, and the novel that this is based on is called Eaters of the Dead, which is a Michael Crichton book, and it is it's historical fiction about this guy, this Arabic guy who went and visited the Volga River Vikings, who were actually at the time historically, the guardians basically of the Byzantine king in the Byzantine Empire. So he was actually using Vikings in the 10th century as part of the Varangian Guard. So they were like an elite mercenary force that was dedicated to protecting the Byzantine king. And then, so basically the Vikings had traveled via rivers all the way through Russia and into Byzantium, which is now Istanbul. And so there was these kind of trading networks. Obviously, the Vikings were also in Ireland and, in Scotland and Scandinavia, Normandy, so northern France. So it was a part of a large, Viking raiding and settlement network. So I find the actual real history behind this to be very interesting. Now, did he go back to Scandinavia with them? No. But interestingly, there are not a lot of very good physical descriptions of the Vikings from this period, and he provides actually in texts that they found later, these are real texts, physical descriptions of the Vikings, including the fact that he says from their toes to their necks they were covered in dark green ink. So that's how we think actually the Vikings were heavily tattooed during the 10th century, which we wouldn't have known otherwise. So there is actually some really cool history behind this. I was a big Michael Crichton fan as a teenager. I probably read most of Michael Crichton's books, including the book that this was based off of.
My sympathies. Wow. Of all the writers to fucking like as a teenager. Shit, so, man. That's look, rough.
The books are a lot better than the films. Like the films have often been done really badly in my experience. So like I think Timeline's probably his best book, but the movie is terrible. There's a bunch of terrible movies that have made. I mean, Congo's a terrible book and a terrible movie.
I was going to say, I'm glad you said Congo because
Congo's really bad.
Because Congo is a diabolically bad book. You can't do anything with
it. It's a terrible book.
So,
yeah, it's a terrible book. They made it into a terrible movie. I mean, the fact that they have these gorillas with like stone paddles, like smashing people's heads, is just really stupid. And the book is bad. Prey, I think another one of his books is okay. It's about like swarms of nanomachines. It's pretty interesting. Jurassic Park, the book is good. The movie's very good. Movie and book are very different. If you're familiar with both of those, like entirely different people die. So it's kind of interesting to compare those and see what the goals of those films were. Sphere is like a bad movie, but an okay book, I would say. But I like Michael Crichton in terms of his versatility as an author. And I think he comes up with really interesting concepts, even if he's not super good at executing them all the time. He was also interestingly a director, and he did partially direct this movie. I mean, part of the reason why this movie is weird and, does have a lot of flaws in it is because it was like John McTiernan, and then it was redirected later and reshot with Michael Crichton. And Michael Crichton was a director before this. He directed a movie called The Great Train Robbery in the 70s with Sean Connery, which actually good.
Westworld. Don't you dare skip over Westworld.
Yeah, he did the original Westworld as well, which then became the new HBO Westworld. So there's all his concepts. He's actually brilliant. Like, you may not like Michael Crichton, but it's crazy the amount he did with his work and kind of his versatility, I think.
Once he hit the 80s, he turned into a hack fraud. That is just that simple. Like, like Andromeda Strain is
Andromeda Strain is a banger.
Yeah, that's a fucking banger. But the problem is, unfortunately, that's like the 80s for him started with Congo. And it's just
I mean, Jurassic Park
everything he wrote after that. No, I mean, fuck, dude. It's like, it's one of those novels where it's like, it's a good idea that just doesn't warrant the fucking material that it generated. Like, it's not a good book to read. Like, I've read Jurassic Park.
I think
it fucking sucks.
The point is, if you guys are asking why I like this movie, it's because I like Vikings. I think it's historically interesting. I like the twist that's given in this movie with like the unknown like cave person tribe that's attacking them. I think it's like a really interesting concept. Richard's already tilted.
I can't handle it. I can't handle the words coming out your mouth.
And I was a fan of Michael Crichton, and I do think it's hilarious that they cast Antonio Banderas as an Arabic man.
The Highlander casting theory.
It's worse. It's worse because here's what's mad. We can get into that if you want. Even just the casting is absurd because, right, I've always thought the obvious reason why the Highlander casting is the most easy to lampoon in Hollywood is because you cast a French actor who can't even do a Scottish accent as a Scotsman and then put the character who's going to be next to him in Scotland on screen all the time as the most iconic Scotsman of all time. Right? You've done an even better one here. You're casting casting a character,
Omar
which, by the
Sharif.
way, here's the reason why that at least could have worked in Highlander. Because in Highlander, right, the problem is he has to be somewhat younger, right? So you sort of couldn't really ask Sean Connery as that role. It wouldn't work, right? The difference is this character has no reason he even has to be young necessarily. You literally had Omar Sharif, probably the most famous actor that would appropriately be cast, stood next to him for the first 10 minutes of the movie and then disappear. And I at least even thought this, Monty, I at least thought, because the gimmick at the beginning is, I mean, we're going to get to this. My God. At least, obviously, he can't speak Swedish, can he? Or Norwegian. So the gimmick initially is this Omar Sharif type guy is going to like fucking speak Greek, and then they know Greek, and it's going to work as a pidgin, whatever. Yeah. It's going to work as a pidgin language that they can just communicate, right? That at least worked, because I thought, oh, good. At least Omar Sharif is coming along then. No, he exits 10 minutes in. So that already is fucking mental, right? Then I even looked this up. You're going to love this. Omar Sharif had his own comment about being in this film, Monty. Here's what he said. He said, after my small role in the 13th Warrior, I said to myself, let us stop this nonsense. These meal tickets that we do because it pays well, I thought. Unless I find a stupendous film that I love and that makes me want to leave home to do, I will stop. Bad pictures are very humiliating. I was really sick. It is terrifying to have to do the dialogue from bad scripts, to face a director who does not know what he is doing in a film so bad that it's not even worth exploring.
It is an amazing movie.
I must tag on to that. Hey, listen, Monty, I was out in the first 10 minutes about 50 times. Antonio Banderas, the way he speaks, everything. But the moment that I can't even believe we got past and you still like this film is the scene where he's sat at the fire.
Yes. Yep.
And he's just watching him like,
the movie.
What about? And then all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, anyway, Bill, what you doing at the pub?
Billy Go roped the hand to them. So then he says, do not foretell me, wife, for I will get no supper when I come home tonight. I don't sound like that.
No, I will
What are you fucking? What are you talking about? You fucking bum. This is so
but here's the thing, Thorin. This movie doesn't give a fuck about your pacing. It's just it is the most ham-fisted. We need to move this plot along. Like the beginning of this movie is literally just like a voiceover with Antonio Banderas being like, I loved the wrong woman, and then I got kicked out of Baghdad. And I'm like, yeah, that's all we needed. You know, there's your exposition, just right to the point, you know? And we get to this film, and it's like you say, Omar Sharif's like talking in Latin to the Viking guy. He's doing some like, you know, kind of double 3 language interpretation. They get to obviously, I mean, they get to the scene where they're selecting the warriors, and it's like, oh, the 13th warrior cannot be a Northman. And then everybody's just like, he's like, well, I guess I have to go, even though he definitely doesn't have to go along, obviously. But he's like, well, I've been chosen by the weird witch, so I must go now to Sweden or Norway or whatever.
Moike verin van Noord. Araberen. Vi må sende araber.
30 stycken mot homo, september 3 no skit.
She says the 13th man must be no Northman.
So anyway, but as for the fire scene, what I love about this is because John McTiernan directed this movie, and I have now successfully
terrible year for John McTiernan, because obviously
I have now successfully forced you to watch both 1999 John McTiernan movies, the Thomas Crown Affair, and the 13th Warrior.
I'm glad he went to prison. You know what? I hope when he got to prison, right, some fucking absolutely hench fucking skinhead guy came up and goes, I saw that 13th Warrior, and then just put his hand up with the like hate and love over the fucking. Here you go, John. I got a few notes. I used to be a big Omar Sharif fan, you know what I mean?
But by the way, John McTiernan in the 80s and early 90s actually was directing a lot of bangers. I mean, we talked about this on the Thomas Crown Affair.
We watched some of them. Why are we watching this shit then?
I've watched a single one of them.
This shit? We're intentionally watching this shit. What are you talking about? Why are we watching it? We didn't do it. Look, I promise you that The Hunt for Red October we will watch on this show, and that is a fucking great movie. He also did Predator, the original Die Hard, Last Action Hero. Like, there's actually a bunch of good movies. Yeah, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like, there's a bunch.
That was his last good film.
Yeah, it's true. But when we look at this, one thing that I found really funny about the scene that you're talking about with the fire, where he's just learning their language because they need to fix the problem.
This is more drawn out than the film. Come on, hit me with it. Come on, fucking hell.
So what I liked about that is that it's a call out to the Hunt for Red October when they switched to English from Russian. Except in the Hunt for Red October, it works really well because it was actually clever in that movie where they like zoom in on Sam Neill's mouth and they switch languages on the word Armageddon. He's reading from the Bible, from the Book of Revelations, and the word in English and Russian for Armageddon is just Armageddon. It's the same word. So they use it to zoom in on his mouth, say Armageddon, then zoom back out and he's speaking English, which I think is very fun. Now, this is just silly, but it's a scene you will never forget from this film, which is he suddenly learns how to speak Old Norse.
Oh, come on. Where did you learn our language? I listened.
By the way, this is the whole premise of why the film doesn't work. Before you even get to things like, by the way, the reason why it's mad embarrassing you just listed off all the greatest action movies ever this guy directed is this is a fucking terrible action movie. So already, right, we're going to get to the other flaws. But I couldn't even engage and get into the film because it starts with Antonio Banderas is a literal, like, in this period, I even looked this up. He's like a fucking guy from like 900 fucking AD from like a Muslim guy with a mad, like, long name, right? The idea Antonio Banderas pulls that off is absurd. He never even gets close to it. Even the second you hear him speak with that incredibly thick Spanish accent, it's so stupid. Then, even that scene early on when they're like around the fire and he has eye makeup on and eyeliner like he's in a fucking new wave band, bro. It's a 900 AD Muslim guy. And also, by the way, one of the wackest parts about this film is that thing which was very popular in the 90s when this film came out, which is where what you do is you take a character. Oftentimes it'll be someone from a different, obviously different, like it'll be like an indigenous person or something. In this case, bizarrely, and this makes no sense, you picked a Muslim character. And what you've done is the Muslim character in 900 AD is your self-insert for every American shitlib watching the film and has all of your values. And in this case, by the way, this is why it goes so badly, Monty. This is why I can't even accept the premise of the central character. Because one of the things actually this movie wasn't that bad at compared to a lot of those Viking shows I actually thought is they did a decent job not making the Vikings too likable. They did give you this vibe that they're sort of pretty harsh, actually. And in fact, as you imagine, one thing they did a decent job with is the notion that the reason to be a Viking and to die a good death is excellent is because life is so short and fleeting and you can be raided at any time or you can die on a raid or there's a million things can go wrong. They didn't do a bad job of portraying that. But the problem is it's actually legitimately offensive that's what the Nordic people are like, what they might have actually been like. And then this Muslim guy is just like Obama or something. Like, that is so fucking absurd because they do that thing in this movie where he's like constantly sort of like in his head doing moral aspersion. Oh my God, how brutal what they're doing. Bro, you're Muslim in 900 AD. Like, what are we even talking about right now? What were your people doing back there? What, you're all having fucking pride parades and stuff like, hey, settle down. You can't win this fight, bro. Fucking, it's mental. So that premise alone, like, is mad. And the reason it's so offensive as well is Antonio Banderas is someone I'm pretty sure everyone naturally pulls for when he's on screen. He is a really good leading man, but this shows he doesn't have unlimited range. Like, one of the worst things about this character you've cast him as is you've cast him as a character that plays to none of his natural strengths. One, it's not in any way a Hispanic character. He's obviously mega at that sort of style. Two, it doesn't have the charisma. Antonio Banderas' style is like humor. It's like George Clooney. It's that effortlessness on screen. It's that suaveness naturally, the sophisticated. None of that comes through because he's this weird, like, fucking, like I say, cipher neutral insert for modern day values in a foreign. What the hell is this culture? And he doesn't come off. He doesn't come off charming.
He's not a fish out of water guy. Like, it's true.
It takes them mega long in the movie before they can even start to give him some jokes and a few like moments of like heartfelt snuff with the characters. That takes so long in the film to establish. And by the way, they barely even do that. Like, they didn't even play up like the romance element. Like, what it's so weird they cast this character, and obviously as well, because he's set up like every like hero's journey film film was like, oh, he's a bit of an outsider and they don't accept him. But then when he starts to embrace their ways, they start to like warm up to him and they are not so frosty. The problem with that is it means he also doesn't have any presence. He starts as just like a whatever character and works his way into the. I just thought even like, because that's the problem I had is like, why am I seeing this film? You know what I mean? Couldn't this film just be about the Vikings and the thing? Like what? Like the central character I thought was just shit. I could never get onto that part of the film. I never cared about him.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is as well. That's kind of weird about it. It's like this is like 90s peak Banderas. This is like, I mean, it's the end. It's the end of him, really. I mean, like he comes off a run of, you know, he was like the classic heartthrob. You know, back when he did like what was it, the fucking the Mambo Kings or whatever that fucking dance movie was. He was in Interview with the Vampire, had like that you know,
iconic.
Don't want to call it a cameo role, but you know, he was like a side character, and it was like really good little story arc contained within. Obviously, he did Assassins, he did Desperado, he did Evita, Mask of Zorro. Like these are all wicked 90s movies for Antonio Banderas. Yep. And then right at the end, just before the turn of the century, he just pretty much ends his career right now. I don't like this, like other than the kids movies he did, like Spy Kids and that. Like there's all of his movies are just throwaway garbage after this. It's like he never really recovered. And like it's like you say, none of this role plays to any of his strengths. He's not a big action guy. He's like a very choreographed action guy, so you can use him in an action role as if we're talking about set pieces, but he's not like a natural action star in the way that you would think of like a Jason Statham kind of guy or something like that. You know, he's not doing his own stunts or whatever. And the action in this, I don't know if they had to shoot around it or whatever, or if it just wasn't choreographed. The action in this is garbage. It's like not an exciting movie. There's like a battle scene that felt like 20 minutes.
Most of the sword fights quite boring. Like it seemed
they were really dull.
By the way, the sword fights actually also pierce another like central tagline I would have, which is, I can't believe this is a cinema film. This actually feels like straight to video or a TV movie. I mean, even the casting's almost like, it's like you've cynically got like 1.5 famous people and then like a bunch of people like, who?
The budget.
You know what I mean? Like so weird. Yeah, it even has that feel though. It never feels epic. Like they're trying to clearly do like a Ridley Scott type Kingdom of Heaven type, but they never get to that scale. They're never even approaching that sort of level.
According to some reports, the budget, because it kept ballooning, and then there was like reshoots, and they brought Michael Crichton in to reshoot some scenes. There's some reports that say it was as high as $160 million in 19.
Think about in the episodes where we were talking about Paul Thomas Anderson and Denis Villeneuve. They're making modern day films with computers that are like 60 million. This is 100 mil. Bro, that's like, someone investigate. IRS, get on their fucking arse, mate. I want to know
it was a giant bomb. It was a giant
That's crazy
bomb.
Though, 100 mil.
But I mean, the reason why it cost that much is because I think it was supposed to be like 85 million. But I mean, we can talk about some of the production history of this and like why it's weird. As we talked about, Michael Crichton had to come in. Well, didn't have to. Chose to come in, and the studio chose to put him in there to reshoot a bunch of this, which is why the film has two endings as well, where it's like it has a natural ending when they go into the cave and like kill the leader, and then they come out, and then they have this really weird, apparently it tested very badly, and so Michael Crichton added this second raid on the Viking village, which is like very weird and very crappy and very short. So, I mean, I think some of the action sequences that John McTiernan actually directed were all right. And like, I think they were kind of good in the middle. I liked some of the swordplay. I think the scene where they're staying up at night and pretending to be asleep for the first attack on the longhouse is like pretty cool, actually. With them coming, all the bear men coming in from outside. I think that scene's done pretty well. I think the first attack on the village is done pretty well in terms of the visuals and the action. It's really just like the second scene that was directed by Crichton at the very end, where they felt like they had to give like a more epic ending that I think was done badly. But it's also like a lot, you could tell that there were a lot of plot points that were never resolved and like brought up and then just abandoned within this film. And I think part of that's just due to the rewrites and the reshoots that happened. And that's what really, I think, caused this movie to go crazy, out of control in terms of budget.
I mean, look, there's it's like Duncan said, right? Like, you go and get one of the best leading men in this time period in Antonio Banderas. You give him a role which he can't conceivably deliver upon. You give him a role that plays to none of his strengths as a leading man, right? It's crazy to even think. So who's going to be in the support role? Like, you have to, like, because Omar Sharif is in the movie for, I don't even think it's 10 minutes.
Oh, no,
like,
it's barely any time
like,
at all.
yeah, like, he turns up and you go, oh, well, maybe this is going to be one of those, like, wicked 90s ensemble. No, they're all garbage actors that you've never heard of. And the problem you've got is the other main dude is that bully with wife guy, who is fucking terrible. He's not even a real actor.
He's like the king guy. I would say that actually he's less important than the guy that the happy guy that Antonio Banderas spends most of his time with.
The secondary actor in this, as far as I can tell, I mean, I was drifting in and out. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was on the couch, like, just fucking please get to the next scene, right? Is Ulfric Stormcloak from fucking Skyrim. That's where we're at.
I am indeed Ulfric Stormcloak.
That's where we're at with this movie. A fucking $160 million budget, supposedly, and you've got Ulfric Stormcloak from fucking Skyrim as like the guy that you're meant to have like a relationship with. He is diabolically bad. There's like a scene where they're fighting the fucking bear people in the caves, and like he just stops and he just like does this fucking monologue about how wicked he is and how wicked, what a great day it's been or some shit. And it, like, he can't deliver it. It's like he's got this really like thick accent that's like, again, because I believe he was like, he's called Vladimir, the actor. So he's not.
He's actually Czech.
Right, he's Czech. Yes, okay. He's from, you know, that part of the world. And it's really apparent in his accent. He doesn't sound anything like you would associate with Vikings or anything like that. So, and he's just terrible. He has no range whatsoever. Bizarrely, when I went and looked him up afterwards, because it was doing my head in, because I didn't realize I recognized him from Skyrim. But apparently he plays Vikings all the time, and I just can't figure it out.
He's
like, how is this guy a professional?
Yes.
He's Czechoslovakian!
A man might be thought wealthy if someone were to draw the story of his deeds, that they may be remembered.
What do we do? Like, bro, so anyway, there is nobody else to even bear some of the weight of this movie.
I disagree.
It is
I think
crying out.
The guy who played the number 2 Viking, who actually has more of a relationship, he has a fun role in this movie. And he's actually a Norwegian guy who plays that.
Herger? Oh,
he means the short guy who fights
who defeats the big guy in the duel. He's the one who actually has most of the dialogue with Ibn Fadlan.
But even then, I'll pick up on what Richard said.
At least he got the accent right.
I have a list written down here. This is why my mind is now blown. This is a $100 million thing. I was thinking we were going to go the other way and told me this is like $2 million and they just had to make do because, bro, the cast is like the worst version I've seen of like, Mom, can we have X? We already have X at home. So it's like, so you get to the village, right? And you meet the actual current king leader guy, right? That's like someone said, oh, we've got Omar Sharif. Can we get Peter O'Toole? And they go, nah, we haven't got Peter O'Toole. We've got Peter O'Toole at home. And it's that guy like, all right, man.
I said, no matter boy knew his father, and I know him now. Wrote to a man. Grown to fine man.
Doesn't pull it off. Then, as you say, you get this like guy who's going to be the next king and who's like the really manly, masculine character. That's like someone said, "Hey, is Rutger Hauer available?" And they went, "Well, we got Rutger Hauer at home, and it's this fucking cunt. And then for the guy you're saying, Monty, the guy who's supposed to be essentially both the comic relief and sort of his liaison to join the tribe and to get their culture right. By the way, a pivotal person to cast. That should be someone, again, like a Paul Bettany or something like that, you know, someone who has like a bit of gravitas. The guy they put, again, that could be put it this way, after he finished these scenes, he had to rush over to the lot to do fucking, I don't know, in this scenario, what would the analogy even be? Like fucking one of those like terrible like 90210 fucking American TV. Like what even was he on an episode of Saved by the Bell or something like this? These actors are fucking terrible, mate. You know, I agree. Like I can see. Here's what's so sad. I actually agree with the initial thing about Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton's main strength is the premise to a book or a story. He's often not actually that amazing. Like a lot of his books, if you've ever read them, I can see how they became popular. He's sort of the proto Dan Brown. Like they almost read like a bad movie. It's like this happened. I can totally see, by the way, how if you did this in a book, it would play way better. Think about like even the first half of the movie is trying to do that like horror movie thing of like don't show you what the enemy is though and make them seem mysterious and have like they only occasionally see, you see a flash of an eye, you see a horn or something. I could see how in a book, if you wrote that as like really compelling, like to edge of your seat, that could be really amazing. It doesn't work at all in this film. And then also, I think the other problem you have is that like the way these characters interact, again, like there's some interesting potential things they're hinting at about culture. Because I never really like cared for the actors, I don't think they pull it off, mate. I don't think they're able to get it done the way that like I could never I was feeling all the beats of a movie like a Robin Hood or you know these sorts of historical epics, but it never even got to the skill. I could never like suspend my disbelief like I would one of those, even though those movies can be silly too.
I think what's interesting about this is, again, the comparison. It has a lot of, you can make a lot of comparisons to The Hunt for Red October, interestingly, which was his earlier film, McTiernan. And like that movie had a $30 million budget, which is actually amazing if you've seen that movie because it looks great still. And also in terms of the casting that you guys talk about, I think The Hunt for Red October is one of the best cast films ever. So it is curious that I agree with your takes on the actors on this one. It's just very strange that he was able to do so much with The Hunt for Red October and actually get this like banger cast in there, and then just, you know, get a bunch of random European actors, and then like Antonio Banderas in this very weird role for him. Completely waste, as you say, Omar Sharif, who is, you know, it also must have been weird for Omar Sharif to just like be acting with Antonio Banderas while they're both like, I don't know, man, because like Omar Sharif's like, you know, actually Egyptian. It's very strange.
Put it this way, like Omar Sharif must have just been aghast. That quote is so funny.
It's so
but
funny.
like he essentially retired from acting because he did this movie, and like I say, he's in it for like 2 scenes. Like it was enough to send him into retirement. But yeah,
this is up there, mate, with that story where they say that Sean Connery did do that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He was like, you know what, I'm just out on films. That's the end for me now. That's it. You know what? If this is what cinema is, I'm not in it anymore.
To be fair, I mean, Omar Sharif did do a bunch more movies after this, but.
Yeah, but I mean, like he didn't take a major role for like a few years, you know, and obviously, like, look, I think as well there was like an expectation of this film, right? Because if you think about the way the 90s has panned out, every piece of medieval history has sort of been, you know, mined and turned into a film of some sort, you know, with Robin Hood and Braveheart and fuck knows what else, right? Like everybody was all about that shit, and obviously all of Michael Crichton's fucking work has been adapted into movies. I mean, essentially, that was one of his criticisms, like of once he hit a certain point in the 80s and 90s, that essentially he was realistically just writing scripts. They were just books.
It's like what comic books they say now, in the modern day, what ruined comic book writing is you write now knowing that they're going to take the property and make a movie with it. It's become like a cynical pitch approach. Yeah, I imagine it's a similar thing once he started getting all these movie deals, right? Because to be fair, if people don't know, he had a lot of fucking work option. Like, as you say, Michael Crichton's had tons of movies, and I could only imagine how many extra scripts he probably got paid for that were never greenlit. No, in the 80s, this became the guy that everyone was doing the films of, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the combination now is that, well, we've got a Michael Crichton book, We've got a fucking medieval property, right? Everybody loves
the
medieval
director
stuff
of
in the 90s.
Predator and Die Hard.
We've got John McTiernan, right? We've got this big guy, knows his way around Hollywood, knows how to direct an action movie. Think about it, right? Like, this is going to be an epic action film about Vikings. And we've got Antonio Banderas. Yeah, we're going to have to work around the accent a bit, but it's Antonio Banderas. He's a heartthrob. He's great. Everybody loves him. It's like, at that point, it's almost as if they just believed the film, like, didn't have to try. Like, it was all the parts.
It's where the success.
Exactly. Like, we've got it. We've just, like, it's like,
it's like a cynical formula. Yeah,
if you have all the right ingredients, it still doesn't mean you make the cake correctly, and this was the problem with it. Like the direction in this movie just seems so fundamentally uninterested. It just feels like you just go through scenes and it's like
a really slow film, isn't it? Every scene's really drawn out.
So laborious, so drawn out. The dialogue fucking sucks. There's no charisma when characters are interacting with each other. They're just like talking. Like, what's that scene about where like they're having a drink and fucking Antonio Banderas is like saying it is fermented wheat or something, like trying to explain what beer is made of. And that guy turns around and is like, it's mead, and he's just laughing and goes, it is made from honey, and then just walks off. Well, that's
that almost feels like that thing where
comedic scene, is it?
I cannot taste neither the fermentation of rape nor of wheat.
Honey! It's made from honey!
There's that thing everyone jokes about now, because on Mexican TV, they've started like integrating the ads into the film and the TV shows. No one ever seen this, where like they'll be like seeing a movie and it'll just be like essentially like Iron Man or whatever. It'll just pull out like a Cervazas gold or something. And of course, that's almost like they were doing that in this scene. It's made out of honey.
Like, I can do that
right now.
What are you talking about? And pull out our sponsor for this episode, guys, because I know you were curious about it. What better way to talk about Mando here, which is sponsoring Foreplay. I know you guys are very excited. This has been, actually, they make a bunch of men's grooming products, soaps, deodorants. I've been using it. My wife has been very much enjoying it. She's been very complimentary. So I've noticed, it works very effectively. I prefer to use aluminum-free deodorants as opposed to antiperspirants, which this is. So very nice there if you guys want something a little bit more natural. Mando is lovely. It's actually created by an actual doctor in order to decrease body odor for a longer period of time. And if you guys would like to try and not smell like the Vikings in this film, because much is made in The 13th Warrior about their hygiene habits, don't be a 10th century Viking. Try Mando, and their Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. Comes with this that I have, the solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, which is deodorant you could rub in under your pits or anywhere else. 2 free products of your choice, such as a mini body wash. They have bar soap, deodorant wipes. Deodorant wipes are very useful if you're camping, for example, I have found in my life, and free shipping. And we have a discount code to get you hooked on our favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off that starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code FOUR-PLAY, and that's FOUR, because it's a pun, guys, because we watch 4 movies, all right? It's not before, which is what FORE is. So, yeah, anyway, you get it. FOUR-PLAY. At shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Code FOUR-PLAY. So thank you very much.
Glad it's put the spark back in your marriage, Monte, as well. It's a nice story to hear about.
Even that though, that ties back into what I was talking about. Like you can, like one of the weirdest beats in this film is when they introduce like the Swedish woman. I don't even know if they fucking give her a name in this thing. The Swedish woman who comes and tends to his wounds. Right. Yeah. The obvious assumption there is right. If this is a Robin Hood fucking Dances with Wolves, obviously that's going to be the love interest, isn't it? And that's another way he's going to connect with the culture. I mean, you already see he does the scene where he's going to save a child. Not only did they not do that, but even though look, this would actually be accurate if you know what Swedes are like. That character acts like she isn't even an actress. Just like put this on now. Oh, look, that is what Swedes are like, but fucking hell, it's a movie, mate. Like, give me something, work with something here, motherfucker, because that is dreadful. And then, speaking of casting, even though obviously I understand the concept of being an actor is if you're a good actor, you can play other roles that aren't native to you. Bro, it's just a purely idiosyncratic complaint here. But when Tony Curran, who's the sort of like long gingery guy, and then Clive Russell, who's the older Scottish type guy who goes, it's a good day, right? You cunts are in every film that's about the medieval period. Just normally you're obviously Scottish, you fucking rats. Or you're in an English one if it's the Tudors or something. Do you guys just say yes to every check, bro? Like, because here's the problem. Maybe Tony Curran got away with it, but Clive Russell did not pass as a fucking Viking, because he's literally the character in every Game of Thrones. Like, he's just some fucker where he's just a Northman, mate, but not in the way they mean. You're either from the north of England or Scotland. That's the only roles this guy can play. He should be typecast, because, mate, he does not come off at all. Like, at least I'll give credit to the fucking the shit Rutger Hauer wannabe guy. At least he looks vaguely like Scandinavian. You know, he has the face, etc. In fact, actually, I'll say this: the one thing I'll say positively for the Vladimir Kulich guy from Czech Republic you're talking about, Richard, is the one thing I'll give him is this: if you actually just did like a still shot of his face, he does look like he could be like Conan or something. He has the look for it.
Oh,
he is just a dog shit actor, though. Yeah,
looks great, but I can't. Like, there's no gravitas there when he talks. I mean,
No.
put it this way: I like Clive Russell, but you are right. Like the problem, it's not like this, never like this. The problem he's got obviously is like he's from the fucking Sean Connery school of acting.
No, exactly.
I'm never doing an accent.
He doesn't give a fuck.
I'm never doing an accent. So it's like, but by the way, they're having this fight in the caves when he dies, and he's just there. Hey up, lad. It were a good day today, lad.
He may as well literally have had a flat cap and a little crop while leaning against the fence post, like, hey up, lads, I'm off.
Hey up, lad, right now. I'm just gonna die now, lads. Get brew on, mash a brew on. Cup of Yorkshire tea. It's the best one. And it's like, what, you're a Viking, homie.
Today was a good day. A good day. Get along, lad.
It's very funny that because here's the thing. I lived in Ireland. I spent a bunch of time in the UK, but I don't have these associations that you guys have. So as an American, it bothers me like a million times less because I don't know that guy in the same way that you guys do.
Oh,
right?
That's all good.
Sure. No, I
do have
get
a question like that, though. Here's my question for you, Monty, which is, look, this is I'm giving you a get out here, but if it's not true, just say it's not true. Be honest, right?
I will.
The one get out I can think of for you goes like this, right? If this was a story, but it was about King Arthur's legend, I would naturally have a bias towards being interested in a way maybe someone from like India wouldn't be, right? Because it connects to my cultural history and there's things I know about that might be interesting. And maybe I'll even go a bit further if it's not as great a movie, like the movie Excalibur is a great example of that, right?
Sure.
Is this because your heritage is Norwegian that for some reason you were just enthralled by this? Is that part of it? Were you interested?
Of course,
for that
like I
reason
said, I've been interested in Viking mythology since I was young. You know what I mean? I have tattoos of Odin's ravens on my shoulders. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot about the history. I talked about the history starting this, and I'm interested in this time period. And it's not like I think this is, a historically accurate version of Vikings. But I do like seeing it on screen. You know what I mean? That said, I didn't watch the TV show Vikings or anything like that, which I did hear was pretty good.
All right.
But
the first couple of seasons weren't bad.
Yeah, it definitely does have something to do with my heritage and my interests in that time period and in the Norse mythology, right? So I do like seeing it portrayed on screen. I do like seeing the longboats. I mean, the armor is completely ridiculous. Like Bullwife is wearing this like filigreed plate mail. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, it's not even practical.
No, but there's no logic. Like, at one point, remember, Antonio Banderas has like fucking chainmail on, like English knights or something. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's so funny looking at so the swords are very accurate, but it's really super funny looking at all the different armors because they have like each Viking has his own different armor and none of it like Antonio Banderas has the chainmail and probably chainmail leather plates. Lamellar was probably more accurate for the Vikings of the period, but this guy's got like this 1400s. Bullwife has this like 1400s filigree like ceremonial like parade plate mail. I'm like, what the fuck is that? It's like so weird. But yeah,
I mean, I was going to say that's one thing I would definitely say about this movie. Actually, is just it's inconsistent. It just doesn't have. You know how like sometimes you watch a movie and it can be bad or it can be good. But one of the most important things it has to have is it sort of has to have this consistency. So, you know, the actors are all in a similar place in terms of delivery, and the sets don't like just change up like wildly at all times. And, you know, there's establishing shots if you are moving around a lot, you know, like things that there's none of that here. There is actually none of that. Like, in fact, is there an establishing shot in this? No, there is at the start. Right, but like,
there is when they get to Scandinavia.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and true. But when they're moving around and like in the caves, like I'm gonna need a little bit here, guys, because you were just in a scene talking to like a second ago, and now we're running through a network of caves. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on? It's like, and in terms of just overall, like the delivery, some people feel authentic, as Duncan said. Like, you know, the woman who tends to his wounds, you can tell she's not acting; she's definitely from that part of the world. But then it's like Antonio Banderas is the least of the problems, I would even say, with some of the accents in here. Like, we got Scots, we got Yorkshiremen, we got Norwegians and Swedes, and it's just this like Malone, and everyone's just talking like this is all fine, and it's not fine. Like, you're not transporting me into a world like right now. Like, so every scene, I am being propelled out of a world that like it's because the direction is so bad in the movie. It's hard enough to get into anyway, and then it's like. Okay, they're planning the attack on the bear people now, right? What? As long as nobody's Scottish speaking. Oh, he fucking Curran's here, isn't he? The ginger rat's ruined it again. So yeah, it was really hard. Like this movie is so inconsistent in tone, direction, everything.
So I will say, like, you know, I think there are many things I like about this movie. I'm gonna list a bunch of stuff that I think is like really ridiculous. Like what I think. I mentioned earlier that some plot lines just die. Like, it's very clear that at some point in this movie, there was supposed to be a plot line of the king's son filling the king's ears with poison about how Bullwife wanted to basically take over his throne, right? And even though that wasn't true,
doing it like Grimmer Wormtongue style from Lord of the Rings.
It was on that Wormtongue
that was going to happen. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, oh, you invited Bullwife here, and he's going to take the throne over instead of actually dealing with the threat you invited him for. And that is resolved by this duel where he's like, and now he has to think about what, you know, now he has to think about what he can't see, and then literally nothing ever happens again.
Heavy-handed. No, but they also were clearly trying to imply, like, that's the epiphany, the eureka he's going to realize about the enemies, that they're not actually these bear people. Like, it's the fear they're creating. And they were obviously heavy-handed trying to lead into that, weren't they?
Yeah. So correct. But I mean, it's like the entire plot line of the king's son and him, like,
they just forget about that completely.
It just goes away. It just completely vanishes, right? The romance that Antonio Banderas has just completely vanishes. They basically just walk up to him after he slept with that woman. They're like, it's time to go.
Come on.
And they just leave. You know, the double ending, because clearly, like, the ending was supposed to be, we go in there, we kill the crazy bear mama, and then we get out and the threat is over, right?
Dude, they even do it like a fucking video game. It's like, and when you get to the boss, remember to kill the mother and also the leader, and then that will make the drone stop. Like, it's like a fucking shit Skyrim, you know what I mean? Like fucking Bloodborne battles.
But like, what was so dumb about that is they clearly should have just gone in and killed the woman, and the movie should have ended. But they added this extra bit. It was like, you have to kill the man with the horns of power, and then Michael Crichton added the next scene, which is like, oh, we have to have this like 2-minute long action sequence just so we can kill that guy, so Bullwife could just like die there from the poison and like be redeemed. Anyway, the second ending is complete trash. The idea of this, he's not even a threat, you know, the main warrior boss. Like, I think it was cooler when they had the reveal of like, here's this like crazy priestess that you have to kill. You have to infiltrate the lair and go kill that. Like, this is what I mean. Conceptually, I really dig some of the ideas here, because what I love is it feels like an actual saga from the period. It feels like a piece of mythology. This is clearly like heavily influenced by Beowulf, but instead of Grendel, you have Vendel, which is the name of the tribe or the people, right? It's, you know, it's a very ham-fisted one-to-one, but it is pulling from literature and stories of that era, right? And I think it's cool to have the idea that they would be freaked out by these people in bearskins, which is something, by the way, that the Vikings literally did. The word berserk comes from the word for bearskin in Old Norse, which is when they would literally get all hyped up on mushrooms and then wear animal skins naked into battle with giant axes and swords to terrify people.
If people have seen that.
Yeah. So like, this is something the Vikings actually did. And so in a way, I find it cool. It's like, in my mind, I'm doing, you know, I'm imagining, oh, maybe like this is where the Vikings got that idea from when they encountered these people. You know what I mean? Because they were so scared by. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff here, and there's a lot of really iconic scenes. Like I said, I really like the scene. So I think the sets are great. The longhouse and the village that they built is like really cool, I think, and feels like authentic to the period. I think when you have the first scene and the fear of the mist rolling in, and they're all like sleeping in that circle, just like with their eyes open, or not sleeping, you know, waiting for the attack. And they're like, oh, we're not drinking tonight and everything like that. And they're just on the floor of the longhouse. I think that's really fun. I think that whole combat sequence where the bear people invade is really fun. I think the fireworm scene where it's like they have all these myths of the other villages that were destroyed, and you see the line of torches with the cavalry coming down is really cool. Like, I think it's a really beautiful shot, and I think it's a very fun idea where they're like, oh, is this a dragon, right? And when they go in and they're like, oh, we have to attack the monster in its lair, and like I like these scenes. There's a lot of stupid shit that happens. I mean, like, why do the cave people have like hundreds of horses? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, if you think about it, like, where are these horses coming from? Also, why does this village have no defenses when they literally have people inside the village who were part of other attacks, and they're like never like dug a trench?
Oh, by the way, if you're going to do that, if you're going to pick apart the plot, none of it makes sense. Like, for example, in their like caves, they have like catacomb levels of skulls. Like, that would be like 10,000 people you killed. Also, it seems you have to always understand the concept in nature of predator and prey. And the idea is there has to be a balance. When you have too many predators, there's not enough prey, so the predators die off. Then when they die off enough, the prey become populous again, and the predators can come out again, right? In this scenario, how would these people ever exist? They'd have killed everyone around them. I mean, until this guy figures out like the video game secret vulnerable area of their thing, no one's ever able to beat them. It's implied they're just like unbeatable forces. You know what's funny though? I actually want to do one of my Thorin's director cut approaches, because I actually thought
good luck with this one, mate.
Yeah, here's the thing though, I actually thought halfway through this film, look, I didn't think they were going to do this, but I actually thought of a way better way you could have done this film. I actually think the mistake the film made was, like I say, when they sort of make it like a self-insert, right? They do the thing in this film, Monty, where the best example I can give is, you know, when you watch like an American like detective procedural, like a Sherlock type thing, if they ever introduce a supernatural element, what do you immediately know about it, Monty?
Well, I don't know. What do you know?
In Sherlock Holmes, if a supernatural element
it's not really supernatural.
It's never going to be real. It never can be. The whole premise always is Sherlock Holmes is going to show it's just like smoke and mirrors, right? What's mad is, why did you have to do that in this film? Why did you have to make the reveal like, oh, they were just tricking you, they were investigating? What I would have done is this. I'd have leaned into that. I'd have made it like a horror film. What I'd have done is the first half is pretty good before you know what they are, that they're humans. By the way, even when you initially see it as a human, it almost looks like an Urukai or something out of fucking Lord of the Rings. You could absolutely have gone with an idea, and I had a great concept for this. It's a very simple one. I'll explain it briefly. I would have made it where, you know, when the sort of mechanism halfway through that gives you an in that there's something more, is they hold up that little statue, which, if people don't know, is the most iconic replica of an earth goddess ever in human history. That's literally the famous
fertility statue. Yeah,
they always show. That's probably the most famous. It's literally it, by the way, guys. It's not like similar. It's literally that exact image of like a headless, big-titted, big Buddhism woman, and because obviously that's supposed to be like, well, it's ultimate fertility, isn't it? That's where all life comes from. I would have taken that angle and the idea that she's like the ultimate boss, so when you kill her, she's like the queen bee that deactivates them. And what I would have done is something like this. Since the whole thing about the Norse people and why they're so harsh is because they live in a very harsh environment, and the idea is this is why, by the way, people are into all the Aryan, because they're the ultimate humans that use artifice to overcome their environment. They're able to like conquer and subdue nature to some degree. They can do the seas, they can do their villages, they can do all this shit, right? So what I would have done is I would have made the story about the Vikings going there, and it turns out these aren't totally human. There's some sort of like think of almost like Zerg from StarCraft. Like she's like the queen, and she like spawns out of the earth or out of herself, like as a fertility goddess. These like Zergling type minion people that look like these bear things that just run. And the idea is that's why they're disposable. They're just unkillable hordes. And then when you finally kill her, you do like kill her off, because then you can be doing a play between like that's deep in the earth, in the caves. They're the people who live on it. Dude, you could do a really banger story with this. I feel like that could have been really interesting. Like you could have played with so much there. But instead, the problem is, as soon as you realize they're just humans with bear skins on, and as soon as you go there and it's like a shitty Temple of Doom or whatever, like a lot of like the interest in the film fell away for me there. Like I actually thought, like I said earlier, I could see how in a book, if you're reading the book and it's just hints of what could that be, and what was that in rustling in the bushes, and I saw a flashing pair of eyes, you know, between a bear, that could, you could see how that could build the tension up. But I feel like it didn't do much with it for me at that point. Like after that, it just becomes like a video game. Like, right, complete the game, kill the boss, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a letdown, and you know, I understand why, because again, it all comes back to the source material. Michael Crichton is trying to ground it in historical reality. That was the entire premise of the book, and so obviously, if you then, you know, Michael Crichton's books are the golden formula for success in Hollywood. Well, we can't presumptively rewrite it and change it and change plot elements. Right. So unfortunately, you do get this rather stale reveal, which, by the way, I've not read the book, so I don't even know if it feels weird that they even set it up as being mysterious and what could it be in the film. Because it can never be.
It's been a long time since I've read the book, but I'm pretty sure they do that in the book too.
Yeah, which is why it's a wild idea, because it can obviously never be what you think it is. I suppose what the advantage the book would have is at least you are framing it in that historical mindset when people were superstitious and, you know, it could be anything. But obviously that's not going to work in 1999.
That's the purpose of, you know, having this be based off of a real historical person, right? And a real historical interaction that happened between him and these Vikings, is because it's basically saying, like, what if we had a historian there for Beowulf? Like, was it really a monster, or was it something that was, you know, a more explainable phenomena? I think that's the purpose of it. Now, I agree that if it had just been a supernatural horror film with Vikings, it probably would be a better movie in and of itself. And you certainly could make something like that. But I think the reason why it's not that is because it is not Beowulf, right? And it's very deliberately riffing on Beowulf. Okay. But, you know, to riff on Beowulf with a book is one thing. To riff on Beowulf with a $100 million blockbuster movie where 99% of your audience hasn't read Beowulf is a little bit of a harder sell, right?
Yeah.
Well, a couple of small things I'll throw in here. Yeah. One, this is how you know, Monty, I just never was feeling this movie. I could never get into it because I had that thing where I wasn't engaged enough that I didn't occasionally go like, oh, okay. So, for example, as I'm watching this film, I'm supposed to be in like 893 or whatever. I'm watching this. I'm in a village. Except all of a sudden, Monty, I just go, well, that's Vincent Hanna's wife out of Heat. I haven't seen her in many films. She's just in it randomly. She's the queen. Remember that? She's just randomly. She's there. Yeah. Mate, when I even saw her, I'm waiting for it to be like, you know, like you fuck and then you leave. Just like, bro, I'm already not in this film. And then the other thing that I think doesn't fit at all in this film, but I understand that this is 1999, so this was almost like one of the patient zeros of what became like this, is, bro, if there's ever a film, think about what I just said about how the Nordic people are portrayed in this film as like very staid, not a lot of humor, they don't get like other cultures. Like he himself, by the way, is like a fucking hardcore devout Muslim in 900 AD. Again, the idea anyone is doing what they do constantly in this film, Marvel one-liners and quips almost turning to the camera, that is mental. What are you doing in your historical film like that? Like, here's the thing, you can make as much fun as you like about like other historical films. They'll either keep that with one character, so for example, like in Braveheart, the King Longshanks does those shitty one-liners, but even they, by the way, sort of playing how what a villain he is, and he's the only guy that really does that side. Dude, this whole thing is like infected with like Marvel brain. It's really weird. Like, why is everyone constantly doing these weird sort of like, get me like, what? Why is this so out of place?
For me, that's the worst part of the movie, because like it's like the shitty jokes like, leave it to an Arab to bring a dog to war.
Exactly.
Only an Arab would bring
A dog to war? I heard this the first time.
Let me ride my fancy Arabian steed around and jump some stuff. And then like the other hilarious one, he's like, I'm not a warrior. And he's like, where's your blacksmith? And he just like grinds his Viking sword down into a scimitar, and then he just like flips it around very expertly. And I'm like, dude, you just said you weren't a warrior. The whole premise is that you aren't a warrior. You shouldn't know how to use a scimitar either, dude. And also, swords don't work like that. You can't just like grind one into the shape of a scimitar.
He insisted.
Even out of a sword, he makes a knife.
He works.
What, you mean perfectly balanced?
Even when he's learning the language, they just do like around the pub banter, like, and your mum, and he goes, my mother was an honourable woman. Like, oh, yeah, shit, you don't, it's humour, you dickhead. The whole film, the tone was so off with that shit there. I don't know why they did that.
But it's the other thing as well. I mean, even with the title of the movie, it's kind of set up as if you are going to go on like some sort of epic adventure, and there's going to be like, we're going to create this like super team of Viking Avengers, and we're going to have this, a guy from Baghdad in there as well, and it's like, look, all that fish out of water stuff, like, I mean, that's like just such a fucking Hollywood trope, right?
It's a trope in it,
yeah. Where it's like, like I say, it's never more hammy than fucking Dances with Wolves, right? Let's just call that out right now. Dances with Wolves is a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke. But I mean, put it this way, I will say, like, when they did it with The Last Samurai, I was strangely enamored with it. Exact same movie. I watched that once a year just so I can cry. I fucking love that film. But anyway, the movie looks like it's trying to sell you on something that it never does. You don't get that. You don't get this epic adventure of like a small group of people, and they're going to be whittled off one at a time, and he's a fish out of water, and he learns their culture, and eventually they learn to accept him as a Viking, and he sees that these savages that he sort of condemned and turned his nose up at actually do have noble beliefs, and we can all be friends. None of that really happens in this film at all. It just, everything it promises that it's going to do, it just instead tells a very drab story. It just goes from scene to scene to scene, plodding along until we get to fucking.
I think it's funny that you think it's plodding along, because they literally just like rocket you through certain aspects of this film. Like they rocket you through the premise where it's like, I love the wrong woman and I was banished, and now here I am with the Vikings. Where it's like, I need to learn Old Norse really fast. Let's do like 2 minutes of fire montage.
But what I mean is, though, in terms of the plotting, is just like, to get to the next story beat it needs for the next scene to happen, they'll just invent all these like Deus Ex Machina bullshit. Yeah, of course, right? But like what I'm talking about in terms of how quickly it moves along with what's happening in each scene. Each scene is so excruciatingly tedious and dull. And I don't know how they manage it, but it is. Like I said, the battle scenes, not exciting, not filmed in an exciting or interesting way. Flat shots, blah, 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 people swinging swords, cutaways it's about to hit, you know, because obviously, like, we don't want to do a load of retakes. And so it just gets to the end, and it's like, but also you can see everything that's going to happen in this movie.
It's telegraphed as
a
fuck,
mile off, like a mile off. Like, it's like, obviously I've seen it before, but I just totally, this memory was just like a fucking beer shit. It was just in and out, like, never remembered it, and then watched it later, and it was like, yeah, I know what's happening with that, and I know what's happening there, and I know what's
Even
happening
the
there.
dialogue is like a video game. It's like, hey, what's that, like, Thundercliff up there? Thundercliff, a thunder, a thunderbolt, a thunder. That might come in handy later if you need to know about thunder. Like,
It's going to rain.
Sir, 3 miles off, there's a cliff. Tide's right. Waves make thunder. Farmers call it the Thunder Cliffs.
I get it. He's going to go there later.
Yeah.
I get it. It's just important to go there. Like, I get it. Like they just do that. They explicitly, like, verbalize what is clearly going to happen next to the plot. Like, put 2 scenes in advance. They do that like 50 times.
Yeah.
The mist, everything, the fire dragon,
and that's what I mean.
Shit.
So it does. The film doesn't do anything to grab you. The film doesn't do anything to hold you. And then by the end, it's just like, you're just like, oh, just fucking hurry up. Like, just hurry up. Like, I'm done. Like, but it's like, I know Bullywife's gonna fucking die. Obviously, he's gonna die. I know
as well. The payoff was when he dies heroically.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're right about me though. It's like,
yeah.
That was what that was all about. That was what that wax scene about writing about Muslim Allah's prophet. Oh, that was what that was all about.
Yeah, but
that was the payoff. That was the
what
payoff.
Is even what is the premise of? I have become a useful servant of God now. What is that? What does that mean, Duncan? What does it mean? What is he saying? Why? You were a pacifist poet, you mad cunt.
I know.
And now you've killed a bunch of people in a foreign land who were cannibals or something, and now you've gone home, and that's made you a useful servant. Why? Why has it?
That his servant, Ahmad ibn Fadlan, might become a man and a useful servant of God.
Throw this out there again, not to overstress the idea that the main character isn't even a Muslim as he's presented. He's just an insert for you with shitlib in the modern 90s. Is on the one hand he'll turn down alcohol made from wheat, but it's implied he just fucked that woman out of wedlock who's completely haram. But okay, let's just throw that completely out the window because it's America, isn't it? Brilliant. Don't worry about it. It's all good. All good.
Just honestly, just such a bizarre film. Like, just bizarre that it ever happened. Bizarre that it couldn't. Like, again, I've never seen a movie be less than the sum of its parts.
When he's just saying his name, which is really long, it's like, I'm just even out on the name. Like, this is just boring. Like, I don't care. I just don't give a fuck who you are, mate.
I am Ahmad ibn Fadlan, ibn al-Abbas, ibn Rashid, Ibn. No, listen. Ahmad ibn Fadlan. Ibn means son of. Ibn.
Yeah, it was.
You just dip in or whatever. Like, just get on.
Like, you know, like for contrast, what's it called? Is it Kingdom of Heaven? The one about Jerusalem.
The Ridley Scott one.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Now that is a flawed film. That has a lot of problems with it. It didn't do particularly well at the time, and yet it has. And by the way,
many redeeming qualities that film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially
it
the
actually has some like
good
performances, and it's got some great scenes.
Beautifully shot,
and it's got like some really nice looking cinematography in certain parts. And you go, okay, I get it. That was just like a flawed movie. You tried to do something and you just didn't stick the landing.
I don't know what you didn't quite get there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know what the landing was meant to be for this movie. I don't know what a good version of this movie was.
It was fucked up by the reshoots and like Michael Crichton taking over.
Well, I mean, Maybe. I don't. But why does he have to come in the first place? He comes in the first place because test audience watched it and they were like, "This is fucking whack." So they said, "Right, well, I know what'll fix it. Michael Crichton, who hasn't directed a movie since the fucking 70s or something, we'll bring him in to do some reshoots. And what are the reshoots? They're all shitty action scenes. Michael Crichton, not an action guy really. If you look at his oeuvre." Right, so you bring in a guy.
It does beg a belief this is Die Hard and Predator. You know what I mean? Well, these scenes, no, it can't be. It just can't be.
I know it's and like I said, this is the greatest sin of the movie. It's that it's boring. It is criminally, excruciatingly boring. Not bad enough to be a train wreck. Not good enough to be watchable. It's just like, it was just a thing that happened to me. And by the way, when I got to the end of the movie, I was like, fucking hell. I didn't realize they did 2.5 hour long films in 99. Bro, it was a 90-minute movie. It was like 100 minutes. Yeah. It was like a 100-minute movie. Yeah. It was like a 100-minute movie. It felt like I'd sat through fucking Dune again. I couldn't be arsed. Like, I was like, oh my God. And yeah, it killed the evening. I got a glass of scotch and just went straight to bed and tried not to think about it ever again until now. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't even understand what they thought they were going to get out of this. It's like I say, it's like, I think they just thought by getting what sounds like a really good formula on paper, a good movie would just come out the end organically. John McTiernan, I can't believe for a second he gave a shit about this film. There's no craft or guile. You wouldn't even believe if I told you that this guy directed Predator. Think about Predator. Think about like. By the way,
you've got all nighttime.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
Bro, how have you filmed this? You've got, the formula, surely. I know.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Think about it, right? You've got an unknowable, spooky monster out there killing people that you've got to go and get, right? Well, where's all the interesting shots for that? Yep. The reveal, the build of tension. You think about Predator, think about the way the monster's introduced at the halfway point of the movie. Yep. It's a masterclass in building tension and intrigue, right? And by the way, like a lot of monster movies, the reveal is always a disappointment because of how good the fucking build-up is. So that John McTiernan is the master of that shit. He practically reinvented it in the fucking 80s. There's none of that in this. You just don't get out some dudes, is it? Sound. All right. It's just like, and like I said, it's just criminal. He's not even doing different types of shot in the movie. It's just this. And then it's this. And sometimes it's that, and then it is a close-up. It's terrible. It's like just such a dull, drab film. And like I say, I feel sorry for Antonio Banderas, honestly. Like, I'm trying. I think he's really trying really hard, bless him. But what can you do with this part? You are a dour, miserable, no fun fish out of water that doesn't even get to really be a fish out of water, doesn't even ever acknowledge that maybe I could turn into a different type of fish. He doesn't. He's never gonna. And then it just ends abruptly saying, "Yeah, wicked. I learned a bunch of cool shit from them Norse people." But what did you learn? I need another scene. I need to see you apply it to something. I need. They're all meant to be bros. I never felt like they were bros. This isn't Band of Brothers, man. Where you're fucking like, no, please don't die, not him. Don't take him, and everyone's really sad. I think
it's just funny that nobody even knows.
There's none of that.
This movie is such a mess from a storytelling perspective that you don't even know the characters' names.
By the way,
I couldn't remember them. I can't.
They're impossible to remember, Monty. That's the problem. Those, like, the joke is, it's not until I looked on IMDb I even realized the ones I thought I knew I didn't even get it right. Like I was doing it as like like he says, like the Bullvith or whatever. I had all these names wrong. The names they didn't do a good enough job, like he says there, with particular shots to establish who is who. They almost just gave you the names. Remember all these names at the beginning? Oh, I'm lost already. And so that's already a problem in itself. And then I also, I want to ask you guys this. Maybe because I had a hard time following the plot and it was hard to get engaged. Am I missing something about the beginning of the film? I don't even understand the premise of how this village exists. So like Monty says, one thing they did a terrible terrible job, by the way, explaining, is that this isn't in Sweden, right? What you're supposed to understand, as you say, Monty, is this is when the Swedes, they did this multiple times in history, came down from the Nordic area and they came into the area that now is Ukraine, Russia, etc. Like that area there.
Volga,
Yes.
If people don't know, that's why they're called Slavs. They were like the slaves of these people that had it was literally like 500 years later. They did this like the deluge and stuff when they all came down, right? When they're based there, I get that the idea is they've got like, it's almost like an outskirt fucking village, isn't it? Like near this new area. But here's what I don't get. So is the premise of this film that if the king guy didn't send for the shit Rutger Hauer guy and he came, then they were just about to be completely wiped out? Like, what's been going on? Because the premise, as far as I can tell, is if this group wasn't there, none of these people would even last one night. That whole tribe would have just come and taken you instantly. It would be over. So what even is that's what I mean. Even the premise seems like really contrived. I don't get it.
There are also more questions, such as why, these people are in Scandinavia. They basically recall them. For example, how do they find them? They're literally just like in the middle of Russia when this happens, like when they're on the banks in that tent, like, and the Cirrus comes out and is like, you have to take the 13 men back, and they send the ship with the boy on it. How do they know where they are? Also, why is Bulviv, why is he the one who can save them? That's never made clear. Right? They don't even establish him as like a warrior. He's just like a really jacked dude in some fancy armor.
Like that's why the part, Monty, when they started, as you said, they tried to hint there was going to be this intrigue with the king's son or whatever the fuck, right? But the reason that makes no sense is not only is it not done more, but I agree. If the idea is we just need someone to kill these people, bro, you have a fight scene where there's like a 7-foot tall fucking guy in your village who's unbeatable one-on-one. Like, what? I think we've got the candidate right there, bro. Send him. What are we doing?
Gotta get a poet though. Gotta bring a poet into our elite fighting.
Well, I know, but so like the premise is also just like incredibly skewed from the beginning. Because
look at these guys, Monty, if you actually did go into Saracen territory, you could get a banger warrior that'd be sick. You've got some twat who's like, my mom was lovely. Can I write? Can I do some writing? You've got the shittest warrior.
What about the
Why?
poem he does at the fucking funeral as well?
Oh, please get me out.
Fucking kill me, dude. Like, that scene is fucking shite. So bad, bro. Like fucking hell. Yeah, this there's just so many problems with this film, and it's like I say, I think. It's not like
Omar Sharif quotes.
That is so funny.
I know.
It's so good you couldn't parody it. It's too good. Isn't it? It's amazing.
But also think about who's saying it. Like this legendary actor. Think about all the greats he's ever worked with, and he believes the 13th Warrior is especially bad. Like that. What does that tell you? So I mean, yeah, this is. I just don't know where this movie thought it was going to end up, and it's like it's not a surprise that it was the biggest box office flop of the year. It's not a surprise.
How much did it make back? What sort of money did it make?
60 mil, which is
like
I
wouldn't expect it. That's not even as bad as I thought. Fucking hell. Okay.
Yeah, it made 60 mil, but I mean, no. But I remember even at the time, this was aggressively marketed.
Oh Jesus!
This was
by the way, guys, the poster
marketed.
is really good for this movie. The poster is actually fire.
What the eye? The eye
like
over
the sun with
Viking
the sun with the Viking boat with Antonio Banderas' eye. It's actually a really cool poster.
And bro, look! I'm looking at the poster now. Look what they had to do. Look what they did from the author of Jurassic Park and the director of Die Hard. Comes something that's absolute shit, like, and not fit to even be compared to any of those things. But like, that's literally what they had to do. Like, they thought they had a dunk with this. I just can't believe it. By the way, the tagline for this movie was "Fear Reigns." What's that got to do with anything?
Like, there's also another one. If you look on one of the posters, are you ready?
What?
This is how bad this is. There's another poster, Richard, which is the alternate one, where as the one where he looks like he is himself like a Scottish guy or something. The one where he's not in his like Arab gear, and the tagline for that's almost as bad. Are you ready? It goes, "An ordinary man, ... an extraordinary journey," which is like, whoever wrote that, you are just a hack.
You don't even see any of the journey.
No, what journey? What journey?
Yeah, it's not like Lord of the fucking Rings, is it? Where it's like every scene's in a different
You see some really bad CGI of a Viking boat on the ocean and them laughing in a storm because they're so hardcore that they laugh in storms.
Haha.
The funny thing is, by the way, the actual film, which I am a fan of, The Northman by Robert Eggers, that
fantastic.
film also, if you've seen it, shows why this film is shit. Because it's not like that's like 50 years later. We're only talking about like a few decades later, and probably with a way lower budget as well. But that actually does capture like the mystery of North
It's a
North
much better
people
movie.
and the harshness and how you'll never understand their culture. And by the way, it does brilliant things with the shamanistic aspects and like the raids, like we're talking about, and the shots. Like it shows what you could have done. Because that's the saddest thing, Monty. Like I say, the thing I could never get past was even the way it's shot for real looks like this is a TV movie. Like even the lighting, they never do anything beautiful. Like think about, like I say, with the fucking Northern one, you could do some amazing things with shadows and bearskin. You could do some dope shit with this, but so it's like the material was there, but they didn't fucking execute on it. They didn't turn it into something amazing.
Similar to our complaints about the Thomas Crown affair, right? Which is like,
well, yeah, but look, I also think it's a movie.
Richard, which was
like,
better, the 13th Warrior or the Thomas Crown affair?
Thomas Crown affair, surely. Yeah. Come on. Come on.
Right, no, and I'll look.
There's between those films, mate. You know.
Yeah, I'll explain as well. Though this is a movie that's out of time, unfortunately, in the sense that if this had come out in 1995, it might have done better. But by 1999, like people have just moved on. 99 is the year of fucking, Eyes Wide Shut, Fight Club, The Matrix, being John Malkovich. You know what I mean? Like Three Kings. Like this is a throwback movie. It's like when I saw it was 99. I was like, wow, it kind of feels like it was 92. Yeah. And 99 people, like I say, we'd moved on cinematically. People were getting more and more experimental. A big budget medieval roller coaster caper romp type film. I don't know. It just didn't. I don't think it ever had a chance, even if it was a better version of the idea. I just think it was a bad. It was a bad option. It was a bad choice to take this particular Michael Crichton story at this particular time and try and bring it to the big screen in 1999. I think by then people were kind of just a little bit played out with the medieval stuff. I think we were done with it. Although I guess what year was Gladiator?
I think that was
2000.
2000. Yeah.
So that kind of does fuck up my theory a little bit because everybody loved that. But then again,
Master
that movie
Commander
was really
also
fucking...
like 2001 or something like that as well.
All right. Well, look, then my theory's shot to pieces.
But Master Commander very famously did very badly at the box office because people were like over historical epics at that time, and that was like the start of the superhero stuff too.
I also have always had a pet peeve with that film. What's the actor that plays Russell Crowe's mate?
Paul Bettany.
Yeah, Paul Bettany. I don't think. I mean, listen, I've never got on board with Paul Bettany. Actually,
I'm a fan. I like him. I think
no. Well, I mean, maybe it's just he was just on screen.
Stephen Maturin, who's the character, like I've read some of the novels of the the Aubrey Maturin series. Like I think the real complaint that I love that movie, but the real complaint of that movie is that his character is like really watered down compared to the character in the books. Like it's not like the books are better. It's like no, he's like a much more compelling character, and they could have made him that way in the movie, and they just didn't.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I just think like that was the part where the movie fell down for me, and it never really felt like they had. I don't know, there just wasn't a connection there. Like yeah, well, and it's not that I dislike them. I definitely think it's a slept-on film. It's just that for me,
that's like an all-time favorite film for me. So.
I mean, like, listen, and by the way, you say that movie, kind of like didn't do all that well. It still made its money and more. I mean, it was a huge budget film and it cleared like 200 million at the box office. So, I mean, like, there's nothing comparable to the kind of like abject failure of the 13th Warrior. It's crazy. I mean, like I'm looking at the Wikipedia page now and it says that it wasn't just that it made 60 million at the box office and it might have lost 100 or whatever, but with all the marketing and everything, it made losses of $129 million.
Yeah,
and it's like this isn't even one of these movies you can like say, oh, it deserves a reappraisal, it deserves a second viewing. You know, there's a lot to love if you know where to look. Yeah, but I feel the reason you like this film, and much like my choice as well, The Beast Must Die. It's all your interests have been poured into one film. It's got historical literature. It's got Norse mythology. It's it's got the Arabic component.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing. When I first saw a preview, I don't know if you guys have seen this movie for 3,000 Years of Longing, which was a George Miller film.
Yeah,
it is literally. So first off, it's George Miller, who I really like, and it's about a genie played by Idris Elba, who is in a love relationship with Tilda Swinton, who's playing a professor of narratology, like the study of like the theory of story. And when I saw the preview for this film, I literally saw it. I was like, did they just make this film for me? Because I'm pretty sure I'm the only person interested in this movie. I think it's a banger, but I understand. I'm like, why would you make this?
But that's what I mean. And obviously, for me, like as we'll get to, The Beast Must Die. It's a lot. How many blaxploitation werewolf movies were made by upstart horror studios that were trying to take the mantle on from Hammer, who had become a bit stuffy and traditional. And it's like, it's a lot of my, like Calvin Lockhart is fucking fantastic in it. And it's like, it is a movie just for me. And it's one of those movies, like the One-Armed Boxer. I show it to everybody, and nobody's coming along for the ride in the same way I am with these films. Yeah. But I feel that's kind of where you're at with that.
It's obviously nostalgic for me as well. The 13th Warrior, like I have fond memories from my teenage years of watching this film, and it does uniquely corroborate for my interests. And I understand why Thorin picked Revolver, because he could probably be a character in a Guy Ritchie movie. So.
He's already done him. He was called Bricktop. Might have seen him. So, the only thing that was different was the glasses.
By the way, I'll give you full marks though. You did actually understand the assignment. You picked the film you like that we despise.
I do like it.
So you nailed it. Yeah.
And listen, since we're going to be doing Roger Ebert as well, right? I've got Roger Ebert's review.
Let's go.
Right, okay. So Roger Ebert gave this film, for once, Duncan, he was on the right side of history. He gave this movie 1.5 stars. And let me. There was a fucking delicious quote right in the middle. Where was it? Yes, here we go. With a budget said to be more than $100 million, it displays a lot of cash on the screen, but little thought. To extract the story from the endless scenes of action and carnage is more effort than it's worth. The film seems to have been conceived from the special effects on down. Instead of beginning with a good story and then adding effects as needed, it apparently began with effects and then the story was shoehorned in to the pauses in the action. That's what he said. And he said it was an example of FX run wild, lumbering from one expensive set piece to the next without taking the time to tell a story that might make us care. Which,
guys,
I don't even think the effects were that good either.
I actually like some of the action sequences, but I think, I can differentiate between I like this movie because I have fun when I watch it, and I leave happy after watching this movie.
What score out of 10 would you give this film, Monty?
Oh, no, I don't think it's a good movie. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I
what
criticize
score out of 10 would you give this movie, Monty? What number score?
5 out of 10.
That's it, 5. That's a 5 is average. 5 is the definition of average. Okay. There's a guilty pleasure mark score in there. You've given it
exactly
full marks.
So, like,
guilty pleasure.
I as I discussed with the Thomas Crown Affair as well, I just like these movies. Like, I understand the flaws. I criticize them as well, but I enjoy watching both of those films. I do.
I mean,
now
listen,
you see why he has to have that show with Doa where they're just like, Star Wars is shit, isn't it? Because if this is your grade of taste, then just for scale, for you to look down on anyone, it has to be Star Wars or some fucking shit Star Trek reboot, does it? Like, you know, you have to get it off your chest too. All the shit rolls downhill, mate. You know how it is, toxicity.
What do you mean? We intentionally picked the guilty pleasure movies, guys. Like, you can't just pretend that all of the bad movies I like are guilty pleasures.
True.
That's not true. It's just this one, and also Thomas Crown Affair.
No, I am aware, by the way, the one flaw with this particular arc is it's going to be a bit like when I do the show Hot Take Point Made, which is even though the premise is to construct a hot take, everyone's response when you do it is like, hey, you out your mind? Like, it's like, well, yeah, but I'm trying to make a really hot take. I'm like, that couldn't even be, that's not even that plausible. You're like, re-engage, guys, lock back in. That's the whole point of the show. It's true. Like the joke, if people don't know what that shows, that's basically why that dynamic works, is because Kassad can't not do that, and I know that, so I just put him in the room with Maui. So it's like, are you insane? It's like, I love it.
It's very funny show.
It is.
But also as well though, just to sort of wrap it up, that, like I say, for me, this movie didn't inspire any like strong feelings in me. Like, ultimately, yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy watching it. I'll never watch it again. I am probably going to forget about this movie very, very quickly.
You'll never forget about the fire scene where he learns Old Norse, though.
Well, I'd forgotten about it one time already. I'm sure I can do it again. I mean, that's
so ridiculous.
I can't comprehend the idea that the director shot that scene and he went to bed that night and just goes like, I'm just going to turn in, slept like a baby.
Yeah, exactly. You think, we might want to...
I know, you're so whack, bro. You think about like those stories of Stanley Kubrick, who made like god tier movies, like torturing himself over every detail, and this guy's just like, I made Predator and then I can't. Right, everyone, good night, Omar Sharif. Good night.
Yeah. What's that? Retiring?
I know.
Well, again, we mentioned this on Thomas Crown Affair, but John McTiernan did end up going to prison for like illegally wiretapping a producer
for his
becoming
incredibly.
The joke is the DA who was on his ass the whole time just really hated this film.
So all I'm saying, guys, is that I might be the biggest John McTiernan fan of all time, and I didn't even know that.
I mean, put it this way. It gets worse for John McTiernan because
Rollerball.
I'm just going to quickly check the Rollerball remake.
Bad reboot, yeah.
Oh my fuck! How dare you?
Yeah, that is whacking it.
Actually,
By the way, one
like...
thing you said earlier that I definitely agree with is, I actually also agree that, believe it or not, there was a moment that was mildly sad about halfway into this film where I had a similar thought to what you said. It's like the movie in general had been so bad. I was in sort of the like, we're Mystery Theater 9000, let's roast this shit. But then every now and then, only for a millisecond, it would elevate to almost become a film again. And I'd be like, oh, that was just a bad film though. Like, I can't even fully just enjoy the shitness because now like it almost hit the beat of like a heroic arc or he's being accepted, but then it would go back into the mire again immediately after. And by the way, my biggest problem, believe it or not, like if you noticed, I didn't necessarily hate the story building concepts, or even like I say, if you'd actually leaned into some sort of like a supernatural, I think I could have even been really dope. But I actually did think the action scenes were the worst thing in the film. Like every single part where they're just battling those people and going there, it was just bad game dialogue and scenes for me. I just didn't think, never was engaged with it at all. Like I had no tension when they went in those caves. I didn't give a fuck. And that's another thing, like we were saying about the characters. I actually think a flaw of this movie is that they don't die. Bro, they set it up as we're Vikings. We go to Valhalla, like
most of them die.
Bro, you no, but I mean, you should have literally made it like a Band of Brothers thing where every death is super epic and in a way, like this guy saves this person just because something heroic. I mean, if you could have really played up that aspect.
6 or 7 of them have died by the time they go into the caves. You know what I mean? But yes, they were like throwaway deaths for the most part.
Yeah, but exactly. That's like, I me's the thing. It's like that's what I'm talking about with the title, and no wonder audiences were confused. Because if you say to me, he was the 13th warrior. All right, there's 13 of them. Yeah, there's 13 warriors. There were 2
it's like the bad. Right? I will say, compare this concept.
If you did a real Usual Suspects of 13 people,
Yeah.
you could name all 13 people in this film.
Sure.
No one could. No one knows even more than 3
You-
warriors in this film.
They don't even say their names. I mean, that's a huge problem.
I only just remembered when he said that there's 13. Like, holy shit, I thought there was like 4.
I mean, imagine
I thought it was a group of 4 people.
A good comparison point is the Seven Samurai, right? Where it's like, you definitely can tell all the Seven Samurai part. It does help that that movie's like 3.5 hours long, so you actually get to know the characters.
Well,
but I mean, it is like
also helps it wasn't being made by a fucking hack fraud as well.
Sure.
Like some guy just didn't stop caring. Like, you know,
I don't
made
think
by one of the greatest
McTiernan
movie
was a hack
directors of all time.
fraud. He just was washed at this point in time.
Dude, he did Die Hard with a Vengeance. He thought, still got it. Went away, started wiretapping people. Yeah, well,
he was just washed and crazy.
Maybe, but like, I mean, listen, this is a controversial opinion. It's a broader thing. It's got nothing to do with the specifics of this movie. But I think washed is a fucking mindset. Right? I think washed, you have to stop giving a shit, or you got to believe your own bullshit or something. Like, you don't have to, like, it's not, I know that Sick Boy in Trainspotting peddled the theory that at one point you have it and then you don't have it. And it happens to everyone, even like Sean Connery, even greats like Sean Connery. And that's his theory of life. But, you know, it doesn't, like, Kurosawa, who you're just talking about, he never ended up washed. He went to his fucking grave having made nothing but straight fire classics the whole fucking time.
I mean, I'm a massive Kurosawa fan, so I think, you know, the echoes of the Seven Samurai. The echoes of the Seven Samurai are also like is probably one of the reasons why I like this movie. I mean, hilariously, this isn't even the worst film inspired by the Seven Samurai, because that would be Rebel Moon that was released recently.
Well, I've not done that.
Never going to be watching that.
And I don't think I'm going to, because if we're talking about hack frauds, Zack fucking Snyder is right. Why? Like, put it this way: do you know how like M. Night Shyamalan, right? A lot of people think he didn't direct The Sixth Sense, right?
Okay.
A lot of people, because it's just so good. Yeah,
Sure.
there's like an internet theory out there that it was like somebody else did it for him, right? Well, I'm like, he's not the guy his directorial debut was that fucking straight fire remake of Dawn of the Dead, and it has just been downhill, like actually downhill. I never came along for the idea that Watchmen was a great fucking adaptation, by the way. And that was
300 was pretty good.
It was 300 was okay, but like he literally had the perfect fucking storyboard, and it was
exactly.
film.
He didn't direct it. It was directed by Frank Miller, who literally
crazy cocaine Frank Miller.
The graphic
crazy
novel, yes.
Everything, like the dialogue, the voiceover, it's all just lifted straight from the comic. So all he had to do was literally just do it like crazy cocaine Frank Miller did. Yeah, there you go. You've made a good movie. Hurrah! We've all done it. And not even really a good movie, because obviously Crazy Cocaine Frank Miller, his comics are they're of a type, let's say. Now, all his films are trash after that. Like, actual trash. Like, his films, in order of time, are also order of quality, which is fucking crazy. And like I said, John McTiernan, he just hit 99, and he thought, you know what? I'm just going to direct 2 of the shittest films Richard Lewis is ever going to see in his life in 1 year. So he is a hack fraud. Fuck him. And Rollerball was even worse. So I don't know. Yeah, look.
I do think on that topic that I sort of agree. Like, here's the problem. In my opinion, you don't. I agree. I actually don't think if you have if you have like a talent for this, if you're good at making films, I don't think you ever lose it. In my opinion, it's more like what Omar Sharif said. You just take a gig for the money, or someone tells you do this film, it's going to be hot. Or something. It's more like you make the wrong choice. You don't make an artistic choice. Because I'll give you an obvious example that since we mentioned Kingdom of Heaven, one of the takes that all the Zoomers have now that's fucking dog shit is they go, Ridley Scott, he hasn't made a good film in about 20 years. Like, guys, that film, The Last Duel, was in 2021. That's a good film. Go watch it. It's like a Western modern day Rashomon. It's such a good film. Like, look, you might not have liked like Napoleon or something, which even then, by the way, was overblown as how bad it was. It was just a not that great film.
It was pretty good.
Films, these aren't stinkers. Like, these would never be on a show like this where everyone's roasting it and everything about it's terrible. Like, and by the way, like I said, The Last Duel is literally 3 years ago, and it was a good film. So I'll agree with you if you say maybe he's done too many sequels, or maybe he's cynically picking pieces, I don't know, to work with this actor. Like, I don't feel like he's the old Ridley Scott, but it's still in there. You see see it every now and then. You'll see like a film like that come out that's just good, and you're like, the guy, he's still there. There's still a guy behind the eyes, as it were.
Yeah. And look, it's okay to do trash sometimes. Like, there's a lot of directors I really like that, they have that rule where one for the studio, one for
Classic,
me, one for the studio, one for me. It's a classic thing some directors do. I love Michael Caine. Michael Caine, in his biography, I think it's called What's It All About, right? He said, right, because he did Jaws the Revenge, for fuck's sake. Like, Jaws the Revenge. This was like the 4th Jaws movie. This was like after Jaws 3D. Jaws the Revenge. How many times can I kill this motherfucking shark? Right? Jaws the Revenge. And he said, I have never seen the film, and by all accounts, it was terrible. However, I have seen the house that it built, and it is terrific.
I remember that line, yeah.
Yeah, and that is, so it's fine to do a piece of shit. It doesn't mean you're totally creatively bankrupt. John McTiernan, by this point, is totally creatively bankrupt, and we know that because he never made a good film ever again. And as I say, there is some sloppy direction in this. There is some lazy direction in this. There are some takes from the actors where I'm thinking, that the one we're going to go with, guys. You don't want to, you've got all the cameras set up. You don't want to just do another one for safety. Like, he's on some Ed Wood shit in some of this. Like, Duncan said, that, right, there's meant to be, like, some chemistry with that woman tending to his wounds, because probably they also had another, like, shall we do a love interest? Shall we not do a love interest? Probably didn't know where the fuck they were going to go. And it's like, that's the delivery, is it? All right, well, cut. Yeah, got it. It's like, you're going with that. You're going with that, the most wooden delivery. Like, bro, he just gave up. He just gave up.
It is like he's himself starring in the Player-esque lampoon of Hollywood. Because you can imagine John McTiernan, or whatever his name is, just like, his 2 like 17-year-old girlfriends came in there with the cocaine. And he was like, I think we're done for today. We got that shot. I'll be in the trailer if you need me. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. Come on.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
All right. Well, I think that's. You guys have any final thoughts? I think we've said everything that needs to be said about this movie at this point in time.
I mean, obviously, look. Hopefully, this episode has been as excruciatingly long-winded as the fucking film felt.
I actually think
so. Everybody's
this
got
episode
the
will be
experience
longer
twice.
than the movie. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's just not much. As I said, it's a bad film that doesn't even do being bad well.
Well, I enjoyed it, but it was fun talking to you guys about it. I do obviously recognize that it's not objectively a good movie, but I still have fun with it. It's a guilty pleasure.
And now I'm getting ready to have my fucking brain broken by the fucking, what was it, the Kabbalah fucking propaganda film that is Revolver.
All right.
Don't make me do it again.
Revolver. And by the way, guys, normally we encourage you to watch along. Maybe don't do that this time. Maybe just listen to us rant at each other. I can honestly say, please do not watch 500 Days of Summer. That movie just sucks. Please don't watch that one. There may be some redeeming qualities to this. I haven't seen either of your 2 movies, so
that episode is just going to be the fucking roast of Roger Ebert's entire career. I can't wait. It's not even about the film. We're going to spend 5 minutes on the film and the rest of the podcast.
It's going to be basically like an anti-eulogy for a dead man.
All right, guys.
It is so out of pocket.
Thanks for watching. Next week, Guy Ritchie's Revolver. We'll see you then.